It's a fourth line day, and today this fourth line gives us a classic keynote for all fourth lines, and it's called fatigue. We're in the 13th gate, the gate of the Fellowship of Blackbirds, sorry, and the listener, there you go. Fourth lines. Our fourth lines can be very, very self-destructive. And as a fourth line person, and with 11 of them, I read this when I was doing some research on this gate and thought, self-destructive. This is not one of the ways that I would necessarily describe myself. And yet, as I was going through it, I thought, oh yeah, actually, I see the tendencies. And it's because of the nature of being so fixed, and the energy that it takes to be so fixed. So with this fourth line, we come to the recognition that there is an opportunity as a possibility for expression out of the throat. There is that possibility. And because of that, the fourth and the fifth lines in particular, they have a very different process to deal with. Third lines are inherently weak, simply in the sense that third lines always have to adapt. They always have to go through their trial and error and make their discoveries through the mistakes that happen in their life. And in that sense, there's a sort of inherent weakness, which is not good or bad. This is a word without any judgment attached to it. It's just the mechanic, really, isn't it? When you come to the abstract process, we find that the real weakness in this process is actually in the fourth line and not in the third. Ra says that you can smell the weakness of the abstract process through the 30th gate in the fourth line, which is called burnout. Here we have a very similar fourth line to the 30 in the 4, and it's called fatigue. And this is what happens. The 13th gate is here to listen. The lower trigram only listens when it is broken in on because it doesn't look for it. It doesn't know that the possibility is out there, that someone will tell it something, and that also there's the possibility for that to be expressed. But the fourth line does know that, and it goes out there to listen. It is ready to listen, and it keeps on listening, and it doesn't get to the next thing, the next important thing in the process, which is the reflection that comes after listening. It doesn't get to do that. So in the lifetime learning, we have the point of exhaustion eventually reached when one is too tired to fight. This will have a deep significance, depending on the nature of a design, of course, and the type that's involved. But if you have an energy type, they will listen longer than those who are not. Both the energy and the non-energy type will still reach the same point of exhaustion. They will just reach it at different times in their lives. And of course, the exhaustion is based on not entering into relationships as yourself, because this is when others are going to burn you out and you end up listening to everybody endlessly until you are absolutely exhausted. So the exaltation says the renaissance that comes with truce and its eventual reinvigoration, openness which leads to exhaustion and the need for silence. This is the moment when you stop listening. The 13-4 finally learns to stop listening. They have had enough. They've heard enough. You can interpret the need for silence as the need for reflection, the need for privacy, the need to be left alone so that the process can be completed. As long as the 13 is taking evidence, it's not able to get to the point of making a verdict, which is what can be reached in the 33, where the listening stops and the evaluating begins. There must be this space, otherwise the process doesn't work. Ra used to tell 13-4s that they should listen professionally, whether that is therapeutic lessons or listening rather, or however that plays out in the life. But they let people come into their aura for a specific time and for a specific purpose. And then when the time is up, they send them away. They're done. And in that sense, by professionally controlling that, they get their opportunity to get their rest, to not get burned out and fatigued. so that they can assess and assimilate and reflect on what it is that they've listened to. On the other side of that are the 13-4s who end up working as social therapists of some kind, and they build up their schedule so that they have people talking to them all day long, every day. And after 3 or 4 months, they collapse, they get sick, they take time off work in order to recuperate, because they can get very ill. And then they go back into exactly the same routine and program because they don't know how to stop listening until they are exhausted. So the detriment says emotional exhaustion, appeasement and withdrawal, a role where openness is a vulnerability. And here you can see that openness simply leads to collapse. After all, this is the fellowship of man. It is a natural gate of communion with the other, and it's deeply attractive to other people as a sounding board, as a place where they can release their information. Well, if you ever watch ants or bees, they are always passing on information to each other. It's like some kind of genetic imperative they have. And 13s are collecting devices in the totality. And if the information coming in isn't kind of clear, then as a 13, you're storing what you've heard and it's not clear. And that can also lead you to burning out, processing information that's not clear or doesn't have integrity to it. Regarding the emotional context that is here, the abstract process is deeply related to the solar plex system. You know, our human experience is conditioned by the solar plex and its wave. The desire in life, the desire to be alive, the desire for life. It's all rooted in the emotional system. 13s end up taking in an enormous amount of emotional energy in their life. As somebody goes down in their emotional wave and they seek out the 13 to unburden themselves on, and the 13 ends up taking it all in. And you find 13s with undefined emotional systems ending up being very sick. Whereas 13s who have a defined emotional system can survive it a little bit better because they generate their own wave. Think about the irony here. You know, fourth lines are normally very influential because they are one-tracked and focused, and because they do have the gift of externalizing. But here, it's a detriment. Here, the fact that one can externalize the listening also means that in their fixedness, they don't know how to stop listening. Only when they get to the point of fatigue and exhaustion and burnout do they stop. This can be particularly difficult for a young 13-4. You know, imagine what that's like. You barely get to live your own life, to express your own life, because everybody else in the family is constantly sharing their experience and their secrets, and you end up holding all of them, taking on that burden, and at least beginning the process of fatiguing very young. So the grounding comes through the 7th in the line 4, and it is called the abdicator, which makes perfect sense to me. If you are fatigued and you're burned out, then maybe the only thing you have any energy for is to abdicate. Mercury moves into gate 13 tomorrow morning. This planet that so often symbolizes communication is going to spend 3 days in the gate of listening. This is, of course, our current sun gate. So we already have a flavor of what this is all about, this collective abstract gate. And the sun has been in gate 27 since 6:56 this morning. This is the sacral gate of caring and nourishment. It moves into gate 24 at 16:28. This is the gate of return. It's in the ajna. It's an individual gate that takes the inspirational insights from gate 61, the inner truth and the mystery, and it keeps going over and over and over them until that pulse comes and something lands. And it may not be anything that makes a lot of sense. It may not be logical, but that knowing will make its way into the 43:23 for expression. And then we have gate 2, the moon moving into the G center, gate of the receptive, the most yin gate of all the 64, being 6 yin lines in its structure. This is the gate of higher knowing, the seat of the magnetic monopole, our driver. It is also individuality, again, with its keynote of empowerment as it moves through its own unique trajectory. So this is the fourth line of gate 13, self-destructive fourth line. So have you got fourth lines? Do you resonate to the self-destructive description here? I would be very interested if you'd like to leave anything in the comments. I would really value your experience. As I've said many times before, you know, and I teach human design. This is part of my passion, part of my my joy in life, really. I can still only teach, however much intellectual knowledge I have, I can only really teach from my own design. So I love hearing from people who have what I don't have. And even people who have what I have. I mean, it's still, you have your experience and I have mine. So it gives me so much nourishment to hear from you guys, from my community, as to what your experience is of these transits. So please feel invited to do that. Would you like to? Let me tell you how valuable it is for me to hear that, if it's something you'd like to share. So until the fifth line tomorrow, I will love you and leave you and ask you. Will I ask you, or I'll just say it. Should I just say it? Go gently. Go gently. And yeah, take care. Bye-bye.